What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chaz, and normally I've been making videos about stories about my world of Orloth, but kind of thought I'd do something a little bit different today. Um, I know it's been a while since I've posted one, and kind of got this idea for a creation process. So I have this deck of cards called the Story Engine. And the basic concept is you use it to create a prompt for a story and then write a story based on the prompt. So what I thought I'd do is shuffle up the different cards and create a prompt and see what shakes out. So first of all, we'll just go ahead and get these all shuffled up. And there's a couple different categories and stuff. And so you have like your agent cards that will give us a basic idea for our character. Engine cards, which will give us the motivation for that character. An anchor, which will give us a reason for that character going after the engine. A conflict, which will obviously be the thing you will have to overcome in the process of obtaining the engine. And then finally, aspect cards, which add adjectives to either your agent or your anchor. So, gotten the cards all shuffled up, and now we'll go ahead and draw. So the first card that we draw is an agent card, and as you can see here on the back of the agent card, we have four different ideas. On this one, we have a mage, an ardent, an heir, or a traitor. So let's go ahead and go with a mage, just to keep it for D&D purposes or whatever. The next is their engine card, and our choices are wants to drive out a spirit that has possessed, or wants to imprison a dangerous spirit in. Tell you which one I think. Wants to imprison a dangerous spirit in sounds kind of interesting to me. So that'll be our engine. Then we draw the anchor, which again, just like the agent, has four options on it. So for this one, we have an empire, a spear, a port, or a throne. And since we're having a mage imprison a dangerous spirit in, let's go with, I think a throne sounds really good for that. That sounds really awesome. Now the conflict, which again will have two options on the back of it. And so for the first one, we have but their greatest enemy will return, or but they will burn out the last of their power. Ooh, yeah, but they will burn out the last of their power. All right, sounds pretty good right now. And now I'm going to draw an aspect, which again, like I described, will add adjectives to either the agent or the anchor. And so for our adjectives on this card, we have elvish, radiant, infernal, or thirsty. Thirsty. Let's go with making the throne infernal. So, Our basic prompt is a mage wants to imprison a dangerous spirit in an infernal throne, but they will burn out the last of their power. Sounds like a really fun exercise, if you ask me. So, what I like to do when I'm doing this type of thing is I will take. Let's take. Okay, so first of all, let's kind of figure out our mage. We need a name for the mage. I'm gonna go with Bertram Falloway. So our mage's name is Bertram Falloway, and the spirit will be let's go with the soul of the, and we'll say, let's say a king, soul of the king, and let's define the king as we'll say that he's, I know, give him the title of Lost King. Thoromir. Lost King Thoromir. Nice. And for the throne, we need to define, I think we need to define the throne. And since it's an infernal throne, we'll say that call it the seat of let's call it the seat of Bearingway. Okay. And then for the conflict, let's go ahead and to be successful at this task, there has to be a ritual performed. And when performing the ritual, that will be what could potentially burn out the last of their power. So, ritual needed to complete task. Okay, so we have the ideas, we have our prompt, we have a couple of notes jotted down. It's not much, I understand, but at the same time, you don't need a lot of notes to just kind of start spitballing and get it off the ground. So, let's the story of Bertram Falloway throne, the seat of Bearingway. And just like that, we have our concept. We now have the working idea. And so now we'll throw out a little synopsis. The ancient mage Bertram sat in his study, poring over his notes. He was studying the throne of Bearingway, an ancient demon from beyond the depths of the Nine Hells. And as he pored over these notes, he realized that to keep the seat of Bearingway from taking over the world, that it required the sacrifice of a soul. And not just any soul, but a powerful soul. And where could Bertram find a powerful soul to sacrifice to the seat of Bearingway? He again pored over all of his notes, and when he came across it, it suddenly dawned on him that the lost king, Thoramir of the Elves, he had not been in his right mind for quite some time, and perhaps this would be his answer. He quickly wrote a missive to his council, describing his plan and his intentions, to which they replied that it was probably a fool's errand and should not be undertaken. But Bertram would not be dissuaded. He knew that if the world was to be saved, a grand sacrifice would have to be made. He then also sent a missive to the elves, requesting an audience with the Grand King. He knew that Thoramir would see him, as Thoramir and he had been counseled together for years. It was not something that he would refuse, which obviously the king did not. Thoramir invited Bertram to come to his kingdom, to come to his dwelling, and to eat with him, and to sup, and to laugh, and have a good time. While there, Bertram began to hint to the king of an ulterior motive for his visit, speaking of the seat of Bearingway and its power that it held over the world, and how there were several demons that were vying for this seat, and that if one of them were to become successful, it would be disastrous for the world. Thoramir pledged to Bertram that he would do anything in his power to help stop this spread, to which Bertram replied that he was grateful, that he knew that the king would do what was needed. He looked to his friend in the sad eyes. He placed his hand upon his shoulder and said, "Unfortunately, my lord, there is only one true solution, and that is the sacrifice of a soul to be placed into the seat of Bearingway to keep it trapped in the Nine Hells." Thoramir, at this point, is most displeased. He cries out to his soldiers to stop Bertram at all costs. Bertram flees the throne room, knowing that he's now marked himself as a true enemy to the elves, and there will be very few places for him to hide. He takes refuge just on the edge of Thoramir's forest, plotting his next move, poring over the notes that he's brought with him. Perhaps there is another solution, something that might yet be done. But he knows there isn't. He knows that the only true ending to all of this is Thoromir's soul must be placed in that throne. So he begins to draw on the floor of the forest the symbols and runes that will play into this dangerous ritual that he must perform. He collects together the components needed, bones of a few animals that have been around, his own blood, a few flowers that he's able to get his hands upon. He crushes them all into a bowl as he begins to speak the ancient words of the ritual. And he walks the circle that he's drawn on the earth. And he begins to spread the dust around the circle. It is at this time that the magic begins to take place. And a small green mist begins to flow up from the forest floor to encompass Bertram. And he spreads his hands wide. And he says the final words, commanding Thoromir's spirit to come to him. In Thoromir's castle, while he lies in bed, in a cold sweat tossing and turning in his sleep, his eyes suddenly fly open, and he feels it. His soul separates from his body and begins to exit the room. Thoromir reaches out for his hand one grasping last time before it falls to the bed. In the middle of his circle, Bertram holds a crystal, and he receives Thoromir's spirit. It is now time to complete the grim task. He makes his way down to the Nine Hells, a truly dangerous place for any mortal at any time, but in this particular circumstance, Bertram finds himself in quite a predicament. He calls to mind all of his powerful spells, casting back demons and devils as he goes. His fireballs and his lightning strikes and his ice blasts, making short work of his foes, finally finding the seat of Beringway. And upon the dais, he places the crystal, and again spreads his hands wide and re-speaks the ritual. Inside the crystal, Thoromir's soul feels itself beginning to see its purpose. And oddly enough, his spirit feels its peace, for he knows that this is what must be done. His spirit leaves his body and enters the throne. And with a loud, thundering crack, energy spreads forth, and a quiet falls down upon all of creation. The seat of Beringway grows silent. The Nine Hells have lost their seat of power. A great wailing comes forth as Bertram makes his way back out. But he doesn't get very far. For as he spreads his hands to cast his magic spells, he realizes he's given it all to this cause. His hands drop to his side, and he pulls out his small dagger, and he looks down at it. He realizes this will be the last of his actions. and he charges forth into the demon hordes, screaming all the way, "For the King Thoramir and for all the plains!" as the demons descend upon him, and his light fades from existence. And that is what my creative process is like. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.